Okay. You can have a seat, sir. All right, your next question.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to just briefly go through the security personnel that you just listed out before we took a break. How long has Leonard Damian been with you?
My kids are now 20, 23. Leonard Damian's been with me, I believe, roughly the same time as Mr. Depp, somewhere in the neighborhood of 16, 17 years. I can't be precise, but they were very young. My children were very young when they joined the team, which was really after Pirates was released in 2003, the first.
Now, you mentioned your children. What is Mr. Damian's role with respect to your children's security?
Excuse me?
You mentioned your children
Yes.
with respect to Leonard Damian. Is his role in connection with your children's security?
Yes, very much so. Leonard Damian and Sean Bett for quite a while were both sort of assigned, as it were, to my kids, taking them to school, picking them up from school if Vanessa and I were unable to do it, or even if we were there, we would drive with them to take the kids to school. And over the years, obviously, your children, my children have taken quite a shine to them, and they've become like another set of parents in a way.
And how long has Travis McGivern been with you?
Travis, I believe, a little bit less than that. I believe. I couldn't really speculate. It's a little less. Maybe it's 13 years, or I don't know.
Now, you mentioned that you had to bring on additional security after Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes.
How has the fame associated with that franchise affected your personal relationships?
Again, I would never complain about the repercussions, let's say, or the repercussions of the success of that film. But of course, as I said, there are sacrifices that one has to make. Sacrifices that you're not nearly ready for. Just simply when you when you go to a town, or you go on a press tour or something, and you're staying in a hotel. People stay in hotels all the time. I stay in the hotel. We've found that it's just a lot easier if I stay put in a hotel and not kind of, again, especially if it's with the kids or something, I don't want them to, I've never wanted them to see me as a novelty. I just wanted to be dad, you know. Now, they're well aware of a lot, and they're well aware of pretty much everything. But no, you know, when you get recognized wherever you go, the basic truth is it's pretty simple. People are generally kind and curious, and if they've grown up with you in their living room, from a television series or from various films that they've seen, there's nothing menacing about being recognized. Sometimes there can be. Sometimes people can get weird, but we've found that it's just it's better all around if I stay in my hotel room and don't go out to too many restaurants or anything, because it generally causes a bit of a hubbub. If you go to a restaurant, someone calls the paparazzi, and you go in for a meal, and you come out, and there's 30 guys out there. It can be a little overwhelming. It's not something. I think I said it before. It's not something that it's not something that I've ever gotten used to, and it's something that I hope I never get used to. Because I don't think of myself in those terms. I used to be Johnny, if that makes sense. I used to be Johnny, and then my name, full name, which I honestly find still, it's difficult, it's uncomfortable to say my own name, because when I say it, I hear the commodity, I hear the product. So I went from Johnny to Johnny Depp, and then that name, with that name, Johnny Depp, and some image was cultivated. Certainly not by me, but the media, especially in those days, they must label you. They have to give you a label. And labels are one of the things that I've fought vigorously with regard to my work. I never wanted to be the poster boy. I never wanted to be the. I don't have, I'm not built with that kind of hubris. I don't have that kind of confidence. I can do virtually anything playing a character. I can become the character in my work, and that character may be able to spit out 100 words a minute, but me, myself, Johnny, I cannot. So therein lies the difference,
Mr. Depp, other than acting, what other artistic pursuits do you have that may be a little less known to the general public?
Well, I've remained a musician. I've been a musician. I started playing the guitar when I was 12 years old, and that saved my life, because I locked myself into in my bedroom at the age of 12, listening to records, moving the needle back, and then learning that piece, and then learning it again. So, so much so I mean, that I don't remember. I have no memory of going through puberty. I was just playing the guitar. I was obsessed with my guitar.
Any other artistic pursuits?
Yeah, I mean, I've always drawn since I was very small, since I was very little, and always enjoyed drawing, and then began to paint, and so there started learning about painting and trying to I suppose different ways of expressing oneself, different ways to release the things that are living in your head, whether they be beautiful memories, whether they be horrific memories, whether they be I have a I need to create. It's a need. It's a. Of course, I want to create as well, but I actually need to create because I need to summon whatever it is that I need to summon, to whether that's within a film or a painting or a guitar note. All of those things should come from a place of an organic place, a place of truth. Because if they don't, well, then you're just lying, aren't you? Every bit of truth, a person doesn't have to say anything on film. What's important is what's behind the eyes. And if they do say something, what's important is not necessarily the words that they say. It's very easy to say, I love you, but what brings it into the realm of truth is what's underneath it, what's not being said, the subtext, if you will. So, any artistic or creative venture, any film, anything that I do, that's where I'm coming from. That's my approach.
Mr. Depp, you mentioned words, and I think the jury has already seen some words that you've written in text messages.
Yes.
Can you please tell the jury a little bit about how you write?
Certainly. When I was young, when I was about 12 years old, my elder brother, Danny, walked into my room and ripped the Peter Frampton record off my record player, threw it across the room, and said, "You got to stop listening to this stuff." And he put this record on, and it started, and I'd never heard anything like it. It was called Astral Weeks by Van Morrison. So I'm a kid, 12 years old. So my brother had turned me on to Van Morrison, then he turned me on to soundtracks like Clockwork Orange or Last Tango in Paris. He turned me on to books by Jack Kerouac. He turned me on to books by Ginsberg, Philip K. Dick. I mean, Salinger. I mean, the whole James Joyce, the whole Hemingway, the whole thing. So, so I became very interested in vocabulary and the unique voices of these writers, And then I started reading people like Tom Robbins and Hunter S. Thompson, and then ended up becoming very close friends with Hunter Thompson for the last 10, 12 years of his life. And Hunter's writing, of course, because of the amount I spent, of time I spent with him, it has influenced my writing greatly. Hunter was known for inventing a thing called gonzo journalism, which is, it's the author putting himself in the situation as opposed to writing it from the author's point of view. He writes it with him in it. And there are great embellishments, and embellishments are great sort of ways that he would twist things and express his feelings, and so he became a huge hero, of course, to me, and a great friend. In my texts and in my emails, or sometimes just even in my writing, you take the subject and you try to express it in your own vernacular, and in that, for example, with the text messages that I apologize that everyone's had to experience, I am ashamed of some of the references made. I'm embarrassed that at the time, the heat of the moment, the heat of the pain that I was feeling, went to dark places. There is no, if you're writing, there is no set place that you have to stay in. You can travel, and sometimes pain has to be dealt with humor, and sometimes very dark humor. I grew up watching Monty Python, so yes, it can tend to get into dark humor. It can tend to get words are used that for emphasis, and words are used to express what you're feeling at the time, and it's just like growing up. You learn from those mistakes, you learn from those things, and you move forward, and that's how you start to understand your own vernacular and what's important, what's necessary and what's not necessary. I tend to be quite expressive in my writing, and after after the unfortunate words of Ms. Heard, made their way into my heart and my head. Those are two very opposing things. So you're trying to find the best way to express something to a friend. Sometimes you're exaggerating, something that you've done, just to make it sound, just to make him understand that, I'm on planet question mark here. I don't know what's going on, but I know I'm in this situation, and I know that it cannot continue.
Mr. Depp, the jury's heard quite a bit from Ms. Heard's side about your drug and alcohol use, but I'm sure they'd like to hear from you. So could you please just tell them about your history of substance use?
Certainly. Again, this goes back to when I was a young boy. Excuse me. At about the age of, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, I can remember vividly my mom telling me to go get her nerve pills, out of her purse that was hanging on the back of the door. So I'd go get the nerve pills, and I'd bring her the nerve pill. She'd take it, and, after a few years, you start to notice, you start to think about nerve pills. And then she seemed to calm down after she took those nerve pills. So when I was 11 years old, I wanted to calm down, and I didn't know how to. So I'd bring my mom her nerve pill, I would walk away, and I would take one myself to escape caring so much, feeling so much, to escape the chaotic nature of what we were living through. So that was the beginning when I realized that nerve pills calm the nerves. Pretty young age to do that. I can't say that I'm proud of admitting to that, but I have to say that I knew not what else to do. I knew nothing else that I could do. So as we were all growing up, there was always those kids who would say, "Let's party. Let's go party. I want to party." I've never used the word party in my life. I've never taken any substance for a party. I have taken these substances over the years, on and off, to numb myself of the ghosts, the wraiths that were still with me, and from my youth. So I needed, everything it was essentially, it was just self-medication. One of those get me out of here moments. And, you know, where you want to escape from is your own brain, your own head.
How often have you used substances throughout your life?
Having started with my mother's nerve pills at 11, of course, you know, that's around the age that you're introduced to marijuana, you're introduced to, and also depending on where you're living and who you're associating with and who's around the neighborhood. I wasn't shy to try a substance to see if the effect of it would maybe even take a bit more of the edge off. So I started at 11, and I mean, I even mentioned this in an interview in TV Guide, if anyone remembers TV Guide, in 1989, where I was asked by the journalist why I believed that kids who were watching the show, 21 Jump Street, about police officers in school as undercover cops, but as students, I was asked why these kids or whoever should believe me or trust me or listen to me, and I said, look, I could, because I've experienced it, and I can tell them that there is no future in it, that there's nothing but a kind of a postponing of the inevitable. That one day you're going to have to face those feelings. One day you will meet those, let's call them demons from your youth. So I was straight up, open and honest at that time in a very, I mean, TV Guide was it was right at the register when you checked out at the grocery store. It was like the most popular thing, and it was a very straight little magazine. But I told them I'd pretty much done all the drugs that I was aware of by the time I was 15 years old, and which was true. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I continued into that, you know, forest of possibilities with regard to substances. I wasn't dropping acid every 5 minutes. I wasn't. There were many years that I didn't touch a substance and no drugs. There were many years that I didn't have a drink. So it's, as I said, it's never been for the sort of party effect. It's been for trying to numb the things inside that have that can plague someone's who's experienced trauma. But the characterization of the characterization of my substance, quote unquote, substance abuse that's been delivered by Ms. Heard is is uh, is grossly embellished, and I'm sorry to say, but a lot of it is just plainly false. I think that it was easy. It was an easy. I think it was an easy target for her to hit, because once you've trusted somebody for a certain amount of years and you've told them all the secrets of your life, that information then, of course, can be used against you, especially if it's taken to a point that is teetering on impossible, and teeters over impossible, in fact, at times. It's so, I am not some maniac who needs to be high or loaded all the time. In fact, in Australia, from before Australia and in Australia, I had been off of alcohol for, I believe it was about 18 months.
Mr. Depp, you've mentioned some periods of sobriety throughout your life. How many would you estimate you've had?
Quite a number. You know, on various films, you see. I suppose, I guess maybe by example, if anyone's, well, if you're familiar with Hunter Thompson's book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which I was lucky enough to make into a film with Terry Gilliam. The film calls for myself and my attorney to be absolutely blotto out of our heads constantly throughout the film. And most people just assume that, well, they just got wasted and they filmed them. There would have been no way you couldn't act that. You couldn't make that film with two actors who were loaded. There would be no way. And then to the other extreme, Donnie Brasco, a film that I made about an FBI agent. I had to go into a training regime where I had to eat 5 meals a day, drink 5 shakes a day, you know, these protein shakes per day, work out 3 to 4 hours a day because I had to gain 20 to 30 pounds of muscle. There was certainly no abuse of substances then. There's been no abuse of substances on film sets. There have been there's been no moments where I would have been considered out of control. Never. In fact, it's not been mentioned. I'm sure they don't want to mention it, but I remember that because when I was with Ms. Heard and her friends, and we were all drinking wine, and I smoking marijuana, they used to tease me because of what they said was a ludicrous tolerance, because I because I never appeared loaded or high or any of that. Even if I felt a little spinny, no one would have ever known.
Mr. Depp, is there any substance that you've ever been addicted to?
Yes.
And what is that?
Roxycodone or Roxycontin, which is it's an opiate. It's I think oxycodone has the opiate and then some pain, like paracetamol or something, and then the Roxys are just the opiate, as far as I remember. And when I was working on Pirates 4, and there was a scene in which I had to grab this large gold and red, stately gilt chair, pick it up and throw it, chuck it out this big giant window. And so I did it, and as I swung around to throw the chair out the window, I felt this immediate electricity from the bottom of my spine down my left leg, and it was like an electricity that burned. So I had obviously it was sciatica, so I had obviously pinched something, done something. So I saw a chiropractor or a kine or whatever. I saw chiropractors, and to no avail. Then I saw a doctor, and the only pain medication that she recommended and prescribed to me was Roxycodone. And there was a part of me that was a little bit worried, just in a sense that I know I've witnessed friends and people over the years who have who've had problems with heroin, and I didn't want to get bit by that snake. And I started taking the Roxys, and I was bit by the snake. And then before you know it, that monkey is on your back to stay. And it's not like you take those pills to get high. You take them to once the addiction has grabbed hold of you. You're not taking those pills to get high. You're taking those pills to get well, or to get better. Because if you're without the pill, your body will start to go into various you'll withdrawals, and so I was on the Roxys for a number of years, 4 or 5 years, I think, maybe more. I don't know, but the key was that if you take 2, you will be what they call on the knot. You will be that. You will just drop into sleep. So yes, I didn't like being dependent on these pills. I didn't like being dependent on a drug that you'd take only so you wouldn't get withdrawals. That's what it becomes. It's like a junkie. The reason why so many, well, now there's a huge fentanyl problem, but the reason why junkies generally, why they end up overdosing is because they're looking for the first high again. And you don't get that. You don't get your first high again. So what do? You up the stakes and you put more, you take more. And that's what makes that's what makes things go dark for them. Because they overestimated the amount that their body could tolerate, and they go blue and they die. So, yeah, didn't want that.
Mr. Depp, do you have an estimate as to what year you started taking the opiates that you just described?
When 2000, or excuse me, it was Pirates. Bless you. 4, I believe. Pirates 4. No, it was Pirates 4. Rob Marshall directed it. I don't know what year that was. Maybe. I actually don't. I have no idea what year that was.
Was it before you were in a relationship with Miss Heard?
Yes. I believe so.
And you didn't detox, and you detoxed